Inside the Cleveland Browns facility, the champagne isn't even dry yet from their stunning 2018 upset over Cincinnati, and the knives are already out. While players celebrate Myles Garrett breaking the NFL sack record, while Shedeur Sanders basks in his first career game-winning drive, the front office is having a completely different conversation. Sources are leaking, insiders are reporting, and the message is brutal. Kevin Stefanski, the two-time NFL Coach of the Year, is about to get fired after winning his final game. But here's where this story goes from bad to absolutely insane. The Browns might replace him with Tommy Rees, the 33-year-old offensive coordinator whose unit just finished dead last in the entire NFL in scoring. And nobody, not the players, not the coaches, not even Shedeur Sanders himself, has any idea what happens next. Welcome to the most dysfunctional victory celebration in NFL history, where winning somehow creates more problems than losing ever could. Don't go anywhere, because you need to subscribe right now. This organizational meltdown is about to get messy, and we're breaking down every devastating detail.
Let's start with the brutal truth that's been hanging over Cleveland like a dark cloud for weeks now. Kevin Stefanski is getting fired. Not might get fired, not could potentially be let go, is getting fired. And the most twisted part? Everyone knows it. The players know it, the media knows it, hell, even Stefanski himself knows it. You could see it in his face after Sunday's win, the way he refused to discuss his future, the way he deflected every question about his job status with visible frustration. This isn't speculation anymore. This is a foregone conclusion wrapped in the thinnest veneer of professional courtesy. NFL insider Jay Glazer said it out loud before the game even kicked off on Fox's pregame show. His exact words, "Kevin Stefanski will be unemployed very soon here." Not hedging, not using careful language, just stating it as fact. And Glazer doesn't drop bombs like that unless he's absolutely certain. He went further, revealing that the Browns had already done background work on potential replacements, that they were leaning toward moving on, and that ownership had basically made up their minds weeks ago. Think about that for a second. The Browns went into their season finale knowing they were firing their head coach regardless of the outcome. Win or lose, Stefanski was done. Which means Sunday's emotional victory, Garrett's record, Sanders' clutch drive, the locker room celebration, all of it was happening in the shadow of an execution that had already been scheduled. It's the most Cleveland Browns thing imaginable. And here's what makes this situation so catastrophically messy. General Manager Andrew Berry is staying. Yes, you read that correctly. The GM who constructed this 5-12 roster, who traded for Deshaun Watson and his franchise-crippling contract, who drafted Dillon Gabriel ahead of Shedeur Sanders, who made the free agency moves that haven't worked out, he gets to keep his job. Meanwhile, Stefanski, the coach who won NFL Coach of the Year twice in 6 seasons, who took this dysfunctional organization to the playoffs twice, gets thrown overboard. CBS Sports' Jonathan Jones confirmed it. Berry is safe while Stefanski is out. Sources around the league are baffled by this decision. How do you fire the coach but keep the GM who built the team? It's backwards organizational logic that creates an impossible situation for whoever comes in next. The new head coach will inherit a roster he didn't build, a quarterback mess he didn't create, and a salary cap disaster he had no part in constructing. He'll be set up to fail from day one, and Andrew Berry will still be standing there when they fire that coach in 2 years. But wait, it gets so much worse, because while the Browns are preparing to fire Stefanski and enter a legitimate head coaching search, there's a wild card candidate that's been lurking in the shadows, a name that's simultaneously fascinating and terrifying Browns fans: Tommy Rees.
Rees is the 33-year-old offensive coordinator who just presided over the worst offense in the entire NFL. Cleveland finished dead last in scoring at 15.2 points per game this season, 28th in rushing. The offense was unwatchable for most of the year, and yet, according to multiple insider reports, the Browns are actually considering promoting Rees to head coach instead of conducting an external search. Mary Kay Cabot, the most connected Browns insider in the business, dropped this bombshell. Would the Browns consider promoting young 33-year-old Tommy Rees to head coach? I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. She explained the logic. If the Browns like what they've seen from Shedeur Sanders' development under Rees, if they believe in the offensive coordinator's ability to continue developing their young quarterback, they might just hand them the keys to the entire organization. Let that sink in. The Browns could fire a two-time Coach of the Year and replace him with the coordinator whose offense finished last in the league. It's the Freddie Kitchens disaster all over again, promoting an unproven coordinator because he had success with a young quarterback for a few weeks, ignoring all the warning signs, hoping lightning strikes twice. Browns fans are having Vietnam flashbacks to 2019 right now. But here's the thing, there's actually a method to this madness, even if it's deeply flawed. The Browns are desperate to keep Tommy Rees, like legitimately panicked about losing him. Why? Because Rees isn't just some no-name coordinator. He's a former Notre Dame quarterback who spent years as the offensive coordinator for the Fighting Irish, then did a stint as the Alabama offensive coordinator under Nick Saban. And when NFL teams call Saban to ask about coaching recommendations, you know what he tells them? Hire Tommy Rees. That endorsement carries weight. Saban is arguably the greatest football coach who ever lived. When he says a guy is special, people listen. Multiple college programs have already tried to poach Rees this season. Penn State interviewed him for their head coaching job. North Carolina wanted him as a finalist last year. Every time a high-profile college opening comes up, Rees's name gets mentioned. The Browns are terrified that if they fire Stefanski and conduct an external head coaching search, Rees will bolt for a college job or get hired away by another NFL team as an offensive coordinator with actual talent to work with.
So the nuclear option on the table is this: promote Rees to head coach, keep him in Cleveland, and pray that the offensive struggles were about the roster and not his system. It's a massive gamble. It's also potentially the most Browns decision in franchise history. But Rees isn't the only internal candidate. Jim Schwartz, the 60-year-old defensive coordinator who just orchestrated one of the best defensive performances in the league despite working with terrible field position all season, is also in the mix. Schwartz has actual head coaching experience from his time with the Detroit Lions. He's respected around the league. Myles Garrett gave him a glowing endorsement last week. The defense has been the one bright spot in an otherwise disastrous season. The problem? Schwartz will turn 60 in June. He's not the long-term answer for a rebuilding franchise. He's not the young, offensive-minded guru that seems to be working across the league. And most importantly, he's not the guy you hire if you're planning to develop a young quarterback, whether that's Shedeur Sanders or someone you draft in 2026. Schwartz is a defensive coach in an offensive league. The Browns need someone who can fix the offense, not just maintain a good defense. Which brings us back to the biggest question mark in this entire organizational circus. What the hell do you do with Shedeur Sanders? This is where Sunday's win becomes both a blessing and a complete disaster for long-term planning. On one hand, Sanders just delivered his finest moment as a professional. With the game tied at 18, with under 2 minutes remaining, with no timeouts and a hostile road environment, Sanders stepped up and led a game-winning drive. He hit Dylan Sampson to move the chains. He connected with Jerry Jeudy for another crucial first down. He gave his team a chance to win. And rookie kicker Andre Smite, who missed the game winner against these same Bengals in Week 1, buried a 49-yard field goal as time expired. Sanders showed clutch. He showed composure. He showed the exact traits that made him a first-round talent who somehow fell to the 5th round.
For one glorious moment, it looked like Cleveland might have accidentally stumbled into their quarterback of the future. But here's the problem. That win dropped the Browns to the 6th overall pick in the 2026 NFL Draft. If they had lost, combined with other results around the league, Cleveland could have moved into the top 3 or 4 picks. That would have given them a realistic shot at Fernando Mendoza, the Heisman Trophy winner from Indiana, or Dante Moore from Oregon, the 2 elite quarterback prospects in this draft class. Both are considered significantly better prospects than Sanders, with higher ceilings and more refined skills. Now, at pick 6, the Browns are stuck in no man's land. They're too low to guarantee landing an elite quarterback prospect. They're too high to justify passing on a QB if one of the top guys falls to them, and they're in the perfect range to make a catastrophically bad decision that haunts them for years. Multiple insider reports paint a picture of complete organizational uncertainty about Sanders. Mary Kay Cabot reported that the Browns aren't there yet on deciding if Sanders is the long-term answer. She said they need to evaluate whether his upside is better than whoever they can draft in 2026, whether he fits whatever new head coach comes in, whether 7 starts is enough of a sample size to make a franchise-altering decision. The stats don't help. Sanders finished the season with a 2-4 record as a starter. He completed 57.4% of his passes for 1,289 yards, 7 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions. His passer rating was 68.5. His QB impact score through 7 games ranked 44th in the NFL. Those are backup numbers. Those are needs significant development numbers. Those are not franchise quarterback numbers. But context matters, right? Sanders was working with Jerry Jeudy, who's been a massive disappointment. The offensive line struggled all season. There was no vertical threat in the receiving corps. The running game was inconsistent. You're asking a 5th-round rookie to carry an offense that was already broken before he got there. Is it fair to judge him based on 7 games in that situation? Offensive coordinator Tommy Rees certainly doesn't think so. After Sanders' performance against the Steelers in Week 37, Rees praised his quarterback's decision-making and ability to make high-level throws. Head coach Stefanski echoed that assessment, talking about Sanders' constant improvement and his approach to each game. Multiple analysts, including former NFL quarterback Chase Daniel, have said Sanders has made major strides and shows development worth building on. But other voices are more skeptical. Tony Grossi, one of Cleveland's most respected Browns analysts, came out and said flatly that Sanders has not earned the right to be the starting quarterback in 2026. His exact words painted a picture of another quarterback competition, another training camp of uncertainty, another season of the Browns having no idea who their signal caller should be. Grossi mentioned that the competition could include Sanders, Dylan Gabriel, and potentially even Deshaun Watson if he's healthy. It would be absolute chaos. And that's the nightmare that keeps Browns fans up at night. Another year of quarterback purgatory. Another year of may the best man win competitions that produce no winners. Another year of the media circus that comes with not having a defined starter. Another year of organizational dysfunction masquerading as healthy competition. Here's where things get really complicated. Shedeur Sanders is not a normal 5th-round pick. He's the son of Deion Sanders. He's larger than life, as Cabot described him. He has a massive social media presence. Colorado football dominated headlines all season because of the Sanders family. If the Browns draft another quarterback and Sanders is sitting on the bench, the media pressure would be relentless. Every incomplete pass by the new guy would lead to "should Shedeur be playing" headlines. Every interception would spark "did they draft the wrong quarterback" debates.
Some teams literally didn't draft Sanders specifically because they didn't want to deal with that circus if he wasn't good enough to start. The Tim Tebow effect, the Johnny Manziel media storm. It's organizational poison when you have a high-profile backup that a portion of the fan base wants to see play, regardless of whether he's actually better than the starter. So if the Browns draft Fernando Mendoza or Dante Moore, and early mock drafts have them potentially taking Arizona State receiver Jordan Tyson instead, which would signal they're building around Sanders, they can't keep Shedeur on the roster. It would create a toxic situation. They'd have to trade him, release him, something to avoid the inevitable quarterback controversy that would dominate every press conference for the entire season. But what if they don't draft a quarterback? What if they take Tyson at pick 6, use the Jacksonville Jaguars' late first-round pick, which they own from a previous trade, on offensive line help and commit to building around Sanders? That's a viable path. It's also a massive gamble on a guy with 7 career starts and a 2-4 record. NFL insider Eric Anderson weighed in on this debate, saying it's already clear that the Browns' best and most cost-effective decision is to build around Shedeur Sanders, who's only costing them $4.6 million on a 4-year deal in this day and age of NFL QB money. The financial argument is legitimate. Sanders is cheap. In an era where quarterbacks like Deshaun Watson are eating up $46 million in cap space while playing terribly, having a potentially competent quarterback on a rookie 5th-round contract is incredibly valuable. You can use that saved cap space to build weapons around him, upgrade the offensive line, fix the defense. But here's the brutal counter-argument. Being cheap doesn't matter if you're not good enough. The Browns have wasted the last 2 years trying to make Deshaun Watson work because of his contract. Now they're considering wasting the next 2 years on Sanders because he's affordable. That's the same mistake in reverse. You don't build around a quarterback because of his price tag. You build around him because he can win. And right now, Sanders is 2-4 as a starter with more interceptions than touchdowns. This is the impossible decision facing the Cleveland Browns front office right now. And remember, whoever makes this decision, it won't be Kevin Stefanski. It'll be Andrew Berry, the GM who's somehow keeping his job despite constructing this mess. And it'll be whatever new head coach they hire, a guy who'll be walking into an organizational structure designed for failure, taking over a team with no clear quarterback answer and trying to fix problems he didn't create with a roster he didn't build. The potential external candidates make this even more complicated. If Stefanski gets fired, he won't stay unemployed for long. ESPN's Adam Schefter reported that Stefanski will be one of the most sought-after candidates in this coaching cycle. The New York Giants reportedly have serious interest. Jordan Ronan of ESPN wrote that Stefanski will attract serious interest from New York. The Tennessee Titans could pursue him. Mike Florio even suggested the Green Bay Packers might target him if they move on from Matt LaFleur. So the Browns could fire a 2-time Coach of the Year, watch him immediately get hired by a division rival or another contender, and then have to face him twice a year while they're still figuring out who their next head coach should be. Classic Browns. And while all this coaching drama is unfolding, there's one more massive elephant in the room that nobody wants to talk about. Myles Garrett, the man who just broke the NFL single-season sack record with 23 sacks, the best defensive player on planet Earth, as Bengals coach Zach Taylor called him, the face of the franchise. Garrett made it crystal clear this week that he's done with rebuilding. His exact words, "I'm committed to winning. As long as the organization is doing so and they're committed to the same thing, that I'm all on board. But if we're thinking anything other than winning, tanking, or rebuilding, that's not me." Translation, if the Browns go into full rebuild mode, if they trade up for a rookie quarterback and punt on 2026, if they bring in a new coach and tell him to develop young players instead of competing now, Garrett will demand a trade. He reportedly already requested one in the offseason before changing his mind. He's made it clear he wants to play for a contender while he's in his prime. Losing Garrett would be catastrophic. He's the foundation of the defense. He's the one superstar on the roster who actually performs like a superstar. Trading him would accelerate a rebuild and make the Browns unwatchable for years. But keeping him while rebuilding would be a betrayal of his trust and a waste of his prime.
So the Browns are trapped in an impossible situation. They can't tank because Garrett won't allow it. They can't run it back because the current roster isn't good enough. They can't fire Stefanski and keep the same quarterback situation because that's insanity. They can't draft a quarterback and keep Sanders because that creates a media circus. They can't build around Sanders without knowing if he's actually good enough. And they can't promote Tommy Rees without acknowledging that his offense was the worst in the league. Every single decision has catastrophic consequences. Every path forward leads to potential disaster, and the organization is making these decisions with a GM who should probably be fired, a lame duck coach who already knows he's gone, and an ownership group that's presided over 26 years of dysfunction since the franchise returned to Cleveland in 1999. This is the Cleveland Browns in 2026, a team where winning feels like losing, where breaking records creates more problems, where a game-winning drive by your rookie quarterback somehow makes the organizational chaos worse instead of better, where your two-time coach of the year gets fired after winning his final game, where your worst offensive coordinator in franchise history might get promoted to head coach, where your best defensive player wants out, where nobody, not the players, not the coaches, not the fans, has any idea what comes next. And you know what the most frustrating part is? It didn't have to be this way. If Evan McPherson makes one of his missed extra points on Sunday, the Bengals win, the Browns lose, they move up in the draft, Sanders doesn't get his moment, the narrative is completely different. One kick changes everything. But that's not what happened. Instead, Andre Smith nailed his redemption kick, Sanders got his game-winning drive, Garrett broke his record, and the Browns created the most chaotic victory celebration in NFL history, where everyone is smiling for the cameras while knowing that organizational warfare is about to break out behind closed doors. The next few weeks are going to be brutal for Cleveland. Black Monday is coming. Coaching decisions will be made, quarterback debates will rage, draft strategies will be argued, trade demands will be issued, free agency plans will be discussed, and all of it will happen under the harsh national spotlight that comes with being one of the NFL's most tortured franchises. Kevin Stefanski will almost certainly be fired, despite going out with back-to-back division wins. Shedeur Sanders will continue living in organizational purgatory, not knowing if he's the future or just a placeholder. Myles Garrett will demand clarity about the team's direction, threatening to leave if he doesn't like the answer. Andrew Berry will somehow keep his job despite being just as responsible for this mess as anyone. And Tommy Rees will sit in his office wondering if he's about to become the youngest head coach in the NFL or if he's about to get passed over for a more experienced candidate. This is Browns football, baby, where dysfunction is tradition, where losing is expected and winning somehow creates more problems, where every decision feels like the wrong one because there are no right answers, where the most historic individual performance of the season, Garrett's sack record, gets overshadowed by coaching drama and quarterback uncertainty. If you're a Browns fan, I genuinely don't know whether to congratulate you on the win or apologize for what's coming next, because the 2026 offseason in Cleveland is going to be an absolute bloodbath, and we're going to be here covering every painful, dysfunctional, thoroughly Browns moment of it. That's the complete picture of how the Cleveland Browns turned a Week 18 victory into organizational chaos. Kevin Stefanski is reportedly out, Shedeur Sanders' future is murky, Tommy Rees might get promoted despite the worst offense in football, Myles Garrett wants answers, and the Browns front office has no idea what to do next. Welcome to the off-season of uncertainty. This analysis is based on reports from NFL insiders, beat writers, and media sources covering the Cleveland Browns as of January 5, 2026. Coaching decisions and personnel moves remain fluid and are subject to change. Information presented includes analysis, projections, and speculation from various sources and may not reflect final organizational decisions. The situation continues to develop, and subsequent events may alter the circumstances described in this report.